Hello and welcome to the Parents Podcast, brought to you by UCAS. This is your essential guide to everything when it comes to careers and education. My name's John Smith, and today we're exploring options, finding out about the various routes and pathways available for students as they decide what is their next step. We're going to find out a little bit about the differences between apprenticeships and traditional academic routes like university. You might have questions like, do employers value them in the same way? And for my child, if they don't know which route to go down, how can I offer some top advice without pushing them too far one way or the other? We're going to go through all of that with help with our guests on the show today. I'm joined by James Wilmot, who's a careers advisor, and Emily Pearson, who's an apprenticeship manager. Hello both. Thank you very much for joining me on the Parents Podcast today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
This is your chance to share a little bit about yourself. So Emily, let's start with you.
So I'm the apprenticeship manager at Pennon Group, which is a water company in the southwest. I support 366 apprentices on programme, and they range from being on an intermediate apprenticeship all the way up to degree level apprenticeship. And I'm also vice chair of the Southwest Apprenticeship Ambassador Network.
Wow, busy then. Lots going on for you. And James, tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'm intimidated by that.
Yeah.
My name's James, and I'm a career advisor at a school in Weston-super-Mare, and I also look after the career programme across a few schools with the help of a team, and we look after 5,000 students, help build their skills and confidence, so when they leave school or sixth form, they go on to amazing things.
Fantastic. What I find interesting about both of you from our conversations today is that both of you said for whatever reasons we didn't really necessarily get on in school that well, and here we are advising students. But do you think that says something about the sorts of roles and sorts of opportunities that are out there for people?
Yeah, I think so. For me, the world of work was really what I was aspiring to do. When I was at school, it was really challenging. Didn't necessarily get on with the academic structure, but I was really lucky that in my last sort of few months of school I was introduced to a careers advisor, and she helped me write my CV, write letters. Really wanted to be a dental nurse and completely thought that was out of scope for me. And yeah, wrote to all the dental practices locally with her support, and successfully was offered a job. So yeah, that's sort of my experience.
Just shows the impact a good careers advisor can have there, James.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important in school that career advice is shoulder to shoulder with all of the other subjects, because there can be something for everyone beyond school, and school isn't for everyone. So having that little bit of guidance in school helps students prep for when they leave and find a pathway that works for them.
So let's get into it then and talk about some of the opportunities and some of the routes that are out there, because it seems like there are so many more perhaps now than some of those traditional routes. Let's start with you, Emily. Talk me through some of the options that are available for students in 2025.
Yeah, so there are various different options, and it can be really confusing and complicated if you're not familiar with the system. So a young person following GCSEs can go on to do their A-levels. If they're looking to go to university, that might be something that they might want to do first, or they have to do first. And it could be that they might be a little bit more technically minded. So they might want to go on to do a T-level, which is a technical equivalent to an A-level, or apprenticeships. So apprenticeships are very popular. So you can gain those on-the-job skills whilst you're earning money. So it's very attractive. Or you could go to university. So they're sort of the main options that you could follow.
And when you get some of the students coming through to you, James, lots of different options. Are you seeing any trends at the moment, or is it really very depending on what route they're looking on going down?
It's really fascinating at the moment, because the trend is that apprenticeships are becoming more fascinating for young people. And the best thing is that now that apprenticeships carry UCAS points, that you can progress to university after an apprenticeship. Just like our guidance is, you don't necessarily have to do an apprenticeship straight from school. You can do A-levels or T-levels and then join the world of work after that as an alternative to university. So the ultimate mix-up and the final piece of the puzzle is in place now. You can leave school, do an apprenticeship and go to university, or you can do A-levels and a T-level and do an apprenticeship or degree-level apprenticeship. So there really is something for everyone. Definitely apprenticeships are becoming more popular. T levels are becoming a real topic of conversation among families because they see this new qualification and they're really curious about it because the door opens both ways to apprenticeships or university. So definitely the practical, more skills-based subjects are becoming far more popular, not just hair and beauty, childcare, construction trades. We're looking at IT, business, marketing, software, all sorts of skills-based subjects that students didn't really explore before.
Real mixture of options there then, depending on the route that you're looking on going down, and maybe what you want that future career to be as well will be a big part of that. So as a parent listening to this who maybe has gone down one of those routes, maybe it's the apprenticeship route, maybe went down the traditional academic route and got a degree and has sort of flourished after that, it can be quite hard now to know what route to maybe help your child go down and where that line can cross into being a bit pushy as well. So what advice would you give, James, to parents who are perhaps struggling to get their head around all of these different options now?
I'd say leave your previous experience at the door and embrace the world of new opportunity and explore it side by side with your child, because it's a learning journey for everybody. So go to college and university events, learn more from firsthand from the experts, engage with school career advisors. Your school may not have a career advisor, but they'll have a network or an organisation that you can link to. So get that firsthand expert information and be curious and look at all the options and make the right decision as a family and be led by your child.
And the other thing that I'd probably mention is work experience. So if you're fortunate enough to have those opportunities at school, I would absolutely grasp them, because that's where you're going to see what the world of work is really like and start to explore some of those industries and sectors. And it might be that you need multiple opportunities within work experience to really sort of to get that information.
Yeah, definitely. It's important to make school more than school with regards to exploring your options. Conversations are fine, but they're not visceral, they're not first-hand, they're not immersive. So work experience and visits to colleges and universities, meeting employers, really taking your school to task as families to reach out to the school and say, you need to do more of this because we need that answer. So give them the feedback and get the service that you deserve.
It can be really difficult to know what the best option is. There are no rights and wrongs when it comes to these various routes. So let's talk a little bit about how some of them work. We've touched on some of them a little bit already in terms of T levels, but what are some of the main differences now between perhaps the academic route, like a degree, and maybe the more vocational route, like an apprenticeship, would you say, in 2025, James?
Well, the degree apprenticeship route would be most of the time in the workplace with maybe some day release or block release to an education provider, the university, but it will be largely based in the workplace, getting paid with a contract of employment, doing a job, being treated like an adult, and the rigours of doing a job and being treated like an adult. Whereas the full-time study option is exactly that. You'll be in university, in lectures or in tutorials or through self-supported study, working on developing your academic knowledge with some skill, practical skill development on the side.
And then when it comes to the apprenticeships, very different maybe to traditional apprenticeships that parents might have been through themselves now.
Absolutely. So there's just so many different opportunities out there from level 2 all the way to level 7. You could follow your whole career pathway through doing an apprenticeship, earning whilst you're learning. And like James already alluded to, you'll attend college either one day a week or on a block release model, depending on...
And some don't even have that college time anymore.
It's remote. And remote learning. So, there's just so many different ways in which apprenticeships are now delivered, and the flexibility is there as well. And, you can be a doctor now. You can train to be a doctor, lawyer. So there's just so many opportunities, and I would really urge anybody to go onto the Amazing Apprenticeship website and have a look at just how many opportunities there are.
The big question might be then, if you've gone through one of those different routes, are they valued equally when it comes to getting a job and entering the world of work or progressing on from that apprenticeship or whatever it might be? So James, in your view, are they valued equally now?
We talked about this earlier on, didn't we? And if we talk about the collateral of skills development, then I would say apprenticeships have got the advantage because it's about practical skills development. I can put my parent hat on and see my son working as a project manager for Babcock, and the skills he's developing are, fantastic. So certainly the skills development has the edge on the apprenticeship side, but it's apples and oranges, apples and pears. I can't remember. Oranges and lemons. I can't remember. But it's two different currencies for the same destination. It's knowledge development, it's workplace experience, and it's the ability to progress in your career. What do you think?
So I think my personal opinion is that university definitely has its place for being a surgeon, those types of academic routes where you have to go to university to gain those degrees and master's degrees. Whereas the apprenticeships opens a little bit more opportunity, different sectors, you get that vital work experience that you need. And I just feel that it's a great opportunity to be able to earn as well whilst you're doing it. So that's my personal take on it. But you're right, there's a place for everybody, and going straight into the world of work isn't for everybody. Following that more academic or technical route in college is absolutely fine. Going to college straight after leaving school and doing a level 1, 2 full-time course is also absolutely fine. Whilst you find your feet and start to establish what you really want to do, because a lot of young people genuinely don't know what they want to do, and it's just so daunting for them. So sometimes that is the better option, so that then you can make those informed decisions a bit later on.
And I agree with you. Certainly, there's a lot of young people that they'd be scared to death of going to university full time, but the world of work to them is completely accessible, and the other way around. It's really fascinating. And some families with, some barriers to finance, going out to the workplace to work is a, viable option for them. So it opens the doors to everybody with hard work and resilience. Yes. The opportunities are there.
For those students who are coming through and are thinking of going down the traditional academic route, thinking of applying to university, it's a big decision to make, isn't it, James? And I'm sure you get people coming through who are trying to work out what the best thing to do is, making their final 5 choices. How, as a parent, can you go about supporting them in doing that?
Open events and trips if you can. If you've got the time and the resources, then visit as many universities as you can and see it firsthand with your child, so they can really kind of get the experience. If that's not the case, then maybe a couple pare down those trips to maybe 1 or 2 selective choices. Online, virtual tours, virtual open events. Ask your school, college or sixth form to bring universities in. Let's have a university fair. I want to meet these people. So parents can maybe reach out to the schools and colleges, provide them with a list of universities that they would like to learn more about. But it's about meeting those university staff, maybe some alumni at the school that went to that university. And your child can find those people on LinkedIn in a professional way and reach out to them and find out what life at university was like, what they studied and what their pathway was. Because that can give the young person a real focus during their studies at uni. If they can see a tangible end destination, or at least a door open or an opportunity, they'll work harder and they'll achieve more.
How important are those visits when it comes to, right, I think this is the place that I want to go, but I'm not really sure, but it looks great on paper. How important is it to go and actually check it out for yourself?
If you can, go. It's like going to a restaurant rather than just watching Gordon Ramsay on TV, It's that tangible thing. If you as a family don't have the time and resources to do that, again, you could ask your college, sixth form, to take a group and make that bridge. Find a university outreach. They might even pay for the trip. So maybe even build that bridge to make the activity happen. So your child is actually going with peers and they can see it all themselves without you over their shoulder.
What sort of resources are out there for parents, perhaps on things like the UCAS Hub and various other places to help you when it comes to making those choices?
The UCAS Hub's a great central point. It's a great starting point, and then that fans out into the university websites so you can get their resources and dates and outreach and whatnot. So the UCAS Hub is a great starting point to get all the information you need to start that shopping around process. And the best thing is that your child is really, really discerning. And they deserve to be, and the universities would be really lucky to have them. as students, as alumni and graduates in the future. So it's really important that they develop a sense of their own self-worth and their value, so they can look around the universities with a critical eye and make a really careful decision for themselves.
And Emily was saying there absolutely is that place, depending on the route you're going down at university, and that taking that route is really crucial for many.
Yeah, definitely. And it's the experience that route gives you. You're a young person, that might be absolutely for them, and they might relish in the opportunity to be away from home, learn a new city or environment, as part of their academic studies. And actually, it doesn't stop them then from going on to do an apprenticeship. So there's loads of graduate programs out there. So if you are successful and you go through your degree at university and then you choose to go into the world of work as an apprentice, graduate programs, we embed an apprenticeship program as part of that. It's endless. The opportunities are endless, regardless of which pathway you choose. You could do an apprenticeship, and as we know, go on to higher apprenticeships and end up in university anyway, just for a different route.
Of course, to get into any of these routes, you've got to know how to sell yourself. And that is a big part of it, and standing out from the crowd. So we're going to talk personal statements and we're going to talk CVs as well. So I'll come to each of you for some top tips. James, let's start with you. When you're working with students who are coming through, what sort of advice are you giving them that parents can take away today that's about writing a really good CV?
Okay, so in my schools, we actually start producing CVs in year 7, just because year 7 students are more fearless and they can put things on paper that more self-conscious older children can't. So we start that so early, so it becomes a working autobiography during their time in school. So when the young person needs a CV, it's been a work in progress for years and they're really comfortable with it. But if you don't have that time luxury, I think a good CV comes down to the personal statement at the top and the key skills, because that's the key to the lock. And it should never be generic. It should also be targeted to the employer in the role, so that the recruiter can look through that CV, and in the first third of page 1, they can see, is that person applying for this job for the right reasons, with the developing skills or the right aptitude, with the right ambition and the right insight, and the rest then can follow. But it's all about the personal statement and the key skills at the top, because that's the sell, that's the grab.
So from an employer's perspective, absolutely agree with what James is saying. Our work experience programme even requires young people to submit their CVs. So we do massively encourage young people to have CVs. And I think when we speak to young people, they're a little bit unsure about what they might put on the CV. But James has now clarified that. And I do think it's any hobbies and things like that, anything that they're interested in, anything that they do but think it's not relevant. I think put them all down, because that's what we're looking for. And we do want to see that somebody's interested and perhaps done a bit of research into the company. So if it's like the water industry, that they've actually sort of alluded to that within their statement. So
yeah, and I guess that comes to personal statement CVs, where it's tailoring it a little bit to show that actually a bit of time and thought has gone into it.
No one wants to see a copied paste AI generated CV. It's who am I? What do I want and why do I want to do it? You're answering those preemptive questions that the employer is asking of every candidate. That's really important. And with application forms, obviously not every employer asks for a CV, but a CV is a really good starting point for an application. You can drop the information from your CV into an application really, really quickly and save all those different versions, save those variants in a file. So you've got all the records of what you've said for what job and where. So if you do get shortlisted for interview, you know what you're going back to and you've got some evidence of the things you've said.
And the other thing that I would say is LinkedIn. So if your young person's not on LinkedIn or hasn't heard of LinkedIn, it's a really, really great platform. Employers are using it all the time to search for, young people or qualified people, competent people to do their jobs. And I'd urge you to get on there, have a look at how you can start building your profile, so you can start showcasing yourself to those future employers.
That's really important because I think a lot of employers do internet check candidates, and how amazing is it when an employer info checks a candidate, the first hit is their amazingly professional LinkedIn profile with all their contacts and their activities. I think that's really good.
So if you're a parent listening to this, you're hoping to guide your child when it comes to writing that CV, what thing would you say maybe to avoid?
I think probably when you're guiding your young person, it's to avoid making it too lengthy. So ask them to keep it to 1 page, 2 page maximum. And they don't have to put their date of birth. So, they can anonymize that. It's absolutely not essential. It's not something that employers are looking for. And yeah, I think sometimes less is more. Keep it simple.
I've got a red flag. Email address. Make sure it's professional. Always make sure your child's email address is a professional one on their CV, and make sure if they put their mobile number on, they've got a working answer service that they check. Because I've lost track of the amount of times employers have called a candidate to request an interview and they never hear back from the student because the student just doesn't check their answer service. There are so many templates out there to help create CVs with your children, but the UCAS CV Builder is really, really good.
Fantastic. Yeah, lots of tools out there to help you out along the way. We want to talk about some of those resources and some of those things that are out there. Perhaps some of the really useful tools, Emily, that you've come across.
So there is a book called The Apprenticeship, Understanding Apprenticeships. It's quite a detailed book. I'd recommend it for parents, even teachers and advisors, but really useful for young people as well to have a look at it, understand apprenticeships, and it really talks you through any of the complexities. But equally, if you're looking at websites, it would be the Amazing Apprenticeships, your local ambassador networks, and your colleges and schools absolutely should be helping your young person to access all of this information.
There's some really good online resources out there, like you just said, really, really good. There's almost too much information. So check out some websites, save them to favorites and bookmark them. Save the UCAS website to your favorites, maybe prospects as well for really interesting different resources, maybe the Amazing Apprenticeships link too. But keep those links close so you can explore them with your children and learn together, because there are so many myths that need to be busted that you could learn an awful lot with your child as well.
And if you are looking for an apprenticeship, you can look for an apprenticeship via the gov.org website or actually through the UCAS website. So us as an employer, we use both those platforms to promote our apprenticeship vacancies. So yeah, I would start having a look as early as possible so you can see what opportunities are out there available to your young person.
And the labour market research is so important to see what kind of opportunities are there, because they can be really competitive. So definitely I agree with you, UCAS, the Gov website for apprenticeships, but a lot of employers still insist on advertising vacancies themselves, which doesn't make it easy for us in school to say, check these websites and everyone else's. There's no one-stop shop yet. But certainly if there's a particular employer you want to work for, check in and refresh the page. And don't be afraid to reach out to employers that may not even be advertising for a vacancy. Ask the question, email them and say, would you consider taking on an apprentice this year, next year, at some point, and be that first candidate in the queue.
Let's talk a bit about the UCAS Hub, which is a great resource for parents. If you're listening to this, wondering how to find everything in one place, tell me a little bit about how that works then, James, and what you can find on there.
Everything you need. So everything from personal statement support for links to universities, job profiles, career quizzes, everything that a family needs to work together to explore career and higher education options.
It's really user-friendly. We use it as an employer, and we promote it as part of our careers outreach activity.
With all of this, as a parent, when you're trying to give advice, you might have been through a very different route to that one that your child wants to go through. It can be overwhelming to know what to do. And what you don't want to do is cross the line and go from advice into pressuring your child into maybe doing something that they don't want to do or something that maybe they don't understand. So, James, how can you perhaps balance that as a parent, giving advice and support where needed, but not being too pushy?
I'm a career advisor and a parent, so I'm doomed. Right? It's important to take the journey with them. They might need a nudge. They might need a slight push to look at something with you. The important thing is that as parents and carers, we don't have all the answers, and the children and the young people need to understand that, because they don't want to be lectured and don't want to be told. So take the journey with them. Like I said earlier, you'll learn something along the way as well. You will learn an awful lot. So take the journey together, go to things together, or take their lead. If they start to build their confidence, they want to go to an event or do something and meet an organization or an employer, give them the rope. If they're starting to show that independence and that resilience that we talked about, cheer them on. You don't have to do it with them and go with them and take them. If they start to show that independence, cheer them along. But definitely it's about taking the journey with them, finding answers together and listening to them and asking questions rather than telling.
So I can speak from experience also. I've got 4 children. And one of which has left school. He suffered really badly with ADHD, really didn't know whether he was going to succeed in life, I don't think. But he absolutely has found his niche, and it was a mixture actually of work and a job. So he's slightly unconventional in that sense. But he's aspiring to be an accountant, and I have every faith that he'll do it. The one thing that I will say from a parent's perspective is it's really, really hard not to nag. And I am a nagger. And we all want our children to do the very best in life and follow, successful pathways that you think are the right ones. But I think probably they'll end up navigating their way through it themselves in their way, and it might not be the way that we want them to do it, but as long as you've given them all of the advice and guidance that you can possibly give them, and you've nurtured them, and they understand you're there, I just believe that they'll make good choices following that.
And it also helps to close the loop a little bit with school, college and parents and the child, to actually get in the same room together at times to make sure that there is no break in communication, that everyone has all the info, all the facts they need. I recall when I sat down with my son looking at universities, when he was looking at the degree pathway, then he started exploring the degree apprenticeship pathway. And those pathways ran side by side for some months until he found the right thing for him. And all those doors were still open. He kept all of those options opened. And that was the only real advice I offered him, is don't close doors yet. See how this plays out. Keep trying, and something will work out. And it did.
And it's overwhelming for everyone, isn't it? But particularly the child that's going through that, if that's your child, and you mentioned your 4 children, Emily, and your son as well, James, it's a lot for the whole family. How can you spot some of those signs of your children, do you think, if they are becoming a little bit overwhelmed and knowing when perhaps to do something or say something?
So my daughter's going through GCSEs at the moment, so absolutely really crucial time, and she's so anxious. I think she's getting pressure from just about everywhere, and I think sometimes you just need to tell them it will be okay, and even if, and we've talked about doing the apprenticeship route, but she's just not ready for the world of work yet, and that's okay. So she's going to do a full-time college course. I think it's about knowing when to just ease off, allow them to make their choices, not to put too much pressure on them, because it's a really highly pressurised time for them. And especially when they really don't know what they want to do. That's quite overwhelming. So I think it's just exposing them to as much as possible.
And James, when you've got a dad who's also a careers advisor, how do you strike that balance between a dad and careers advisor at home?
From experience, badly, very, very badly, terribly. My number 2 son is going through GCSEs at the moment, and he struggles to have a concept of career paths. So I've talked to him about the skills and the things that he'd like to do on a day-to-day basis and the things that he doesn't want to do on a day-to-day basis. So in the back of my mind, I'm forming career paths with him, for him, but he's talking about the skills and the things he wants to develop and do further down the line. He's going to do A-levels and then something after that, I expect. But certainly in terms of the things to look out for is when, if your child becomes super avoidant, teenagers are avoidant. But if they become quite avoidant, check in with school as well, just to make sure that they're engaging with the careers advisor, make sure that maybe their college applications or university applications or apprenticeship applications are sound, and just ask to see them, and better still, do some with them, just so you can look over their shoulder and make sure that the quality might be there, just to help them along, because they will get knocked back. Degree apprenticeships, for example, are really, really competitive. Places at university are very, very competitive. So there will be, some preparation for taking rejection, and it's how they dust themselves off and move forward on that. But I agree with you, they find their way. And all the thousands of students I've seen leave my schools and come back and rejoin to speak to students, none of them ever said they worked too hard in school. Everyone says they could have done a little bit more. They could have done things a little bit differently. So regret is a powerful emotion. So in some ways, our parenting should mean that we're stepping back to let them make some mistakes and have a wobble sometimes, because then they can reach out to us when they really need help and they know that we're not nagging.
James, have you got any advice for a parent who is in a position where their child just can't decide? Is it going to be university? Is it going to be the apprenticeship route? What top tip would you give to them today?
I've been that parent, and it's exploring both options at the same time. So go to universities, go to those open events, reach out to the universities while exploring the apprenticeship pathway as well at the same time, searching and applying for vacancies, so that when the right door opens at the right time, all options are available. Through some visits to universities, it might be that your child thinks, actually, this isn't for me, and that's fine. All in on apprenticeships. Or as they apply for those jobs, they may not be finding the right one for them, or they might not quite have the skill set or the academic level that those employers are looking for, and that's fine. Swing back to universities and follow that logical path to make sure that they are becoming the discerning candidate and the first choice candidate when the right opportunity comes up for them.
There's no harm in young people applying for both options. So should they be in a bit of a quandary as to which option to go with, apply for both, put your hat in the ring, and then hopefully the opportunity will present itself when you get to it.
Absolutely.
Some really valuable advice from you both, from the world of work, but also your experience as parents as well on the podcast today. So thank you both.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for joining us as well. Hopefully you've got some really useful tips when it comes to pathways for your child and exploring their options as well. Remember, there are loads of brilliant resources on the UCAS website, and I do hope you'll join me for our next Parents Podcast. Goodbye.
Stay informed with expert advice straight to your inbox. Sign up now for key updates, deadlines and guidance to help you support your young person with confidence.